I talk about this idea of being the kick-ass favorite grandmother, and dare I even offer great grandmother. And I grew up with my great grandmother. On my Lebanese side. I remember her. I remember her face. I remember her cooking with my grandmother and my great aunts, and it's something that I strive to personally. And who knows if I'll get there or not, but it's certainly a dream that I have, an achievement unlocked, if you will. And when I think about my grandmother, we call in Lebanese, we say sitto. So my sitto, when I think about her, she was not the most mobile. So she was able to walk, but she sort of had this like shuffling type of walk. She didn't take large strides. Her balance was a little bit off. And while I didn't understand a lot of what she was saying, she spoke zero English and had no desire to speak any English. Certainly, my grandmother, I would hear my grandmother sort of complaining about her attitude and things like that. So all that to say is that when we're thinking about aging, right now I am a woman in my 40s. I'm in my mid 40s. I'm 45. And so if I were to fast forward to, being a grandmother or a great grandmother, that's probably going to put me in that maybe 65 to 70 when I'm a grandmother, let's say, maybe even earlier than that, actually. Let's say 60 to 70 years old, I'll become a grandmother if all, goes according to plan. And that's what happens for my sons. And then, another 30 years later, call it, 90 years of age, I potentially have the opportunity to meet my great grandchildren. And so what does that mean in terms of my abilities at that time? So right now, I have no problem squatting. I have no problem deadlifting. I have no problem running. I have no problem doing all those things. But as I age, I am not fooled by the idea that those skills, that if I am not careful, will degrade. It will be easier for me to injure myself and all of these different things. And I was looking at some stats this morning on the CDC, as nerds such as myself do, and hip fractures among older adults. So, what happens when we don't have good leg strength? When we don't have good vitamin D status, when we don't have good proprioception stability and balance, we are going to compromise our ability to stay upright when we are walking. Certainly, if you are someone who lives in climate where there's wintertime, that is also a really big risk for older individuals who are 65, let's say, and older to fall. And in the States alone, 300,000 individuals, so 65 and older, are hospitalized from a hip fracture. And of those hip fractures, 95% of them are caused by falling. Okay. So usually falling sideways, like losing your balance and falling to the side, or falling in front of you. What we might, you'll hear chiropractors sometimes, if you have the opportunity to hear them talk with each other, we usually call those foosh injuries, FOOSH, where it's a fall on an outstretched hand. So you'll probably also, and that's what happens when you fall, right? There's an instinctive reflex to sort of brace yourself. So you put your hands out in front of you to brace the fall. And often you'll get fractures of, several, like many of the wrist bones, certainly the radius and the ulna as well. So we call those foosh injuries. But of course, the most important injury that we're talking about is potentially to different areas of the ilia, so different areas of the hip. And so we have 95% of the hip fractures are caused by falling. And then of those 300,000 individuals who are 65 and older, 3/4 of all the hip fractures are women.